So we're using this determined or pre-drilled and measured template to drill the holes in the front cross member here. For the intercooler piping, this is not necessary for every kit, but for this one, it makes it easier. So these are going to be basically our pilot holes for the whole saw. So we drill through that and we're going to weld these pieces for the intercooler. This is part of the intercooler piping into the frame. All right, so we finished cutting all of our holes for the intercooler piping. There's 2 holes on each side, obviously, for the intercooler piping to pass through here. And yes, we're going to use that same flux core welder that I've welded every single thing on my Land Cruiser with. All right, so now the intercooler piping that goes through the frame is in. You could actually most likely get away with not even welding these because they're in there. There's very little tolerance, but we're going to weld it anyways. In the spots that we can get to, we're not going to go crazy about it. Make sure it's painted. Now we are going to cut 7/8 or 3/4 of this diameter, and from what I've heard, this is very thick material here at the driver's side. So this is the part where if like we're following a tree, we want to cut to get some bend here. We can just bend it by hand or heat it up and then bend it so that we can bend this side down. What we're gonna have to do is cut about a ½ inch in here, and this has to be lowered so that you can see there that pan's hugged up right against it. This is a piece of 1x1 square tubing that Matt opted for in lieu of just using the steering brace. We're gonna utilize that steering brace, but the reason that we're doing this is because the oil pan won't clear. There's just a little kit, one part of the kit that he sold that's going to use this as a drop down for that to the steering brace to weld onto, and then there's a gusset for the back side of this as well. So let's get to cutting this side and this side. So we've got enough on this side cut. This side's fully cut, and just by putting my weight on it here, I'm able to get enough of it bent down. Now this rest of this, I believe, needs to get chopped off so that we could get this welded on.
You can feel that.
All right. This is the clutch pedal that I got from James Trinka in Australia. Thank you again. It's got a little bit of rust on it, but it's fine. We just drilled, basically there's 2 studs. There's a stud here where that bolt is and a stud there. Not exactly. So we actually just drilled those studs out. I'm not sure what those are for, or maybe for a clutch pedal from a different application. This clutch pedal will work, but we had to drill the holes and then drill the holes in the firewall in order to get it in there. But it's in, and as far as the orientation, don't mind the wiring, get all that cleaned up. As far as the orientation, it's pretty darn close to where it would be if one of these came with it. I'm sure somebody eventually will see this with a left-hand drive manual, and maybe you can comment and show. Anyways, that'll go down like that. Obviously, it's not going to just spring to a stop like that, but I'm happy with the clutch placement. I wear size 12 shoes and double E wide, so I have like kind of a duck foot. This will become a problem, the proximity. But Matt just brought up an idea, because the automatics come with such a wide brake pedal, we'll probably take this out and grind off a little bit so it has a similar profile to the clutch, so that, you know, there won't be an issue of knocking pedals, which I don't even think there will be, to be honest, but something to consider. You know, if you have larger feet, you know, maybe something to consider. I don't honestly think it's going to be a problem. But so now we need to modify the fuel pump pickup part of the fuel system, which we won't need anymore because our fuel pump is in the engine bay on the engine. So take these 3 Phillips off to get access to the tank. There you go. All right, so here we have our fuel pump. The part that we're going to be modifying is this right here. We're going to be removing this. This is like your just electronic fuel pump with a fuel filter, this little sock. We're going to be removing this and just adding our stainless steel pickup tube. This is the stainless steel pickup tube, and we've just kind of real uglily bent the bottom part around the pickup tube. I can't my camera's focus for some reason. Anyways, that's going to help it from wobbling around. Fuel pickup is still there. Still have the wires from that going in. So now we're going to drop it back in. So this is another thing of while we're in here, we might as well replace it while it's easy and we have access to it, because this whole area is going to be congested with the P pump and other things. So I decided to get a rebuilt steering box because mine's old. So this was built and resealed by Thomas, if you remember the very first Land Cruiser, Cummins swap Land Cruiser video I did. He rebuilt the box. There's something on I Hate Mud on how to do it. It looked a little bit more intense than I wanted to get into, but most importantly, this is the piece de la Resistance, whatever they say. This is the 105 series, which we didn't get here in the United States. It's basically an 80s series, a late model 80 series in Australia, sector shaft. So this has more splines, which I'll compare the two when I have it out, than the stock 80 series. So higher spline count and thicker diameter by about 20 mil. So the reason why you go with something like that is you have bigger tires, not these, but when you have the 40s on heavy bead locks like I do, this is potential failure point. Your steering, well, not the steering box, but more so the pitman arm. So I wanted to replace, this is the 80 series sector shaft. I wanted to replace this whole thing to get a new brand new rebuilt steering box for the wheel feel, but also more importantly, that shaft is a major liability on the trail if it breaks, being that it's already 30 years old, it's rusted, it's corroded. So what we did is removed the tie rod from the pitman arm, and we're going to remove the 4 bolts holding this in. There's also the tightening the noose around this steering column. So we're going to get all that removed, and I'll compare the diameter. All right, so this is the old one that was in there. So less splines, and you can actually see there's some documentation on I Hate Mud. After you take this off, you can inspect where the race of this pitman arm was, and you can see if there's any twisting on the splines. Some of them do, some of them don't. It's going to be hard to tell. You can't really tell from here, and I can't get my camera to focus. But anyways, in comparison, it won't come through on camera, but I mean, yeah, higher spline count. I don't know the exact count, but I mean, it's significantly larger in diameter. And this is something, this cost me $1,000 for rebuilt with a new sector shaft. The sector shaft on a wit's end is like $700. So I figured $300 extra to have a rebuilt, resealed power steering box was well worth it. And it's another thing that what I'm doing here is I'm overbuilding it for the tire size and wheel weight that I have, so that I don't have this fail on me on the trail. So we'll get this installed. So this is just a 1/2 inch, I would say a 1/2 inch spacer that's going between the frame and the steering box. And that's ordered to get more clearance this way, I would assume, for the P-pump and yes, all this plumbing that's going to be here. So we're going to start installing the AFC Live kit that we got from Power Driven Diesel. Not going to do an unboxing because those are cringe. Basically, it's just going to come with this controller and instructions on how to install it. You do need to make sure that when you buy the AFC Live kit, you buy this Max Travel foot to replace your stock one. So we're going to be removing this. If you remember from that previous video, we cut the fuel plate and then moved it all the way forward. So we're going to be replacing this, excuse me, not this, but this, with the Power Driven Diesel one. Basically, this is going to allow us to control when the engine will come into boost and how much fuel to give it. And then there's a there's a just bypass switch here. which is like full send, full fuel, and bypass all these settings. So I'm not going to show you the whole install process because it's kind of boring, but we'll just get through it and go from there. All right, so the P-pump is back together. We've got all the AFC live kit installed inside, which was really just the foot and a different spring for the max travel kit within here. Star wheel is turned all the way in, which it already was. Then we have the boost fitting here, which we're going to install the rest with this airline. What's this called? Airline. So yeah, tubing. So the P-pumps, we've got our 4K governor springs in, which if you remember is just that little spring that sat in the middle. We rechecked our tolerances for around 40 thousandths in between 30 and 50. This has the lower tension spring here as well, and we have the AFC housing pushed all the way forward to get the most travel out of it and to allow us for the most amount of fuel by adjusting the AFC live kit. All right, so we've got the 1-inch body lift kit all installed. These are basically just aluminum pucks that will go on top of all your existing hardware, or bushing at least. So you're going to retain most of your original stuff. This kit, I believe, will come with nylock nut, the correct length of the studs. This is the longest stud, and you have to access it from the inside of the engine bay down here. So yeah, you have to, what I did was I just took all of the body mounts off, and I'll show you where the rest are. There's one here right by your exhaust. There's one there in the middle. And to get at these, you're going to have to get in the cab. I'll show you in a minute. And then your last one's right here, right by the rear wheel. I'm sorry, not the last one, but there's one more. There's this one right here. This one, this is the exception. There's a little plastic tab here that you can peel off in order to gain access to the top head of the bolt. We did these reversed because these studs are relatively long. They're the second longest one in the kit. So we just put the nylock net up there. He held a wrench here, and then I hit it with the impact gun here. Make sure you have your washers, obviously, but yeah, you're gonna have to get all these off, and then kind of, we used a couple pieces of wood and went on the pinch weld here with a jack in order to get the body up. You want to do them in sequence, so we basically just got them all, the pucks in, and then put the studs through, and then once they were all on all around, then we tightened them up because some of them might not go in. So you're going to need to get underneath your carpet for 3 of these. Oh, sorry. One's right here. You just take that off. You have to gain access to it. There are going to be washers on all the interior ones. You need to keep those. The other 2 you'll have access to with your door open. This middle one is right behind the mount for the rear bolt for the seat. And then this last one is where the sun don't shine. You got to pull your carpet up, and it's just where the firewall starts to go up in the cab. So you need to take off this plastic part of your interior in order to gain access to this. While you're in here, it's a good idea to make sure you don't have any leaks or any mold or mildew. Mine is a little wet down there. I happen to know that it's most likely from water ingress here because I went on a trail and was ripping this guy off and need to fix those. But yeah, body lift is in. Again, the reason that you need the body lift is so that the NV45 will have a little bit more room here so that in the cab it doesn't come into contact here with this bezel and this part of the body, as I understand. We'll see more on that soon. I still have the shifter from the NV4500 back there, and we'll probably modify that like Matt did. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. We still have a lot more to do on the engine before we get it ready to mock up putting in there, but that'll be in a future video in the next week or so. So thanks for watching. If you like this content, please subscribe and like for more Land Cruiser Cummins swap related content, and thanks for watching.